All right, guys, so now it's time to deploy our application, and there's a bunch of, different ways you can deploy React, a bunch of different services. I think Nellify is one of, if not the best. I mean, you get a free tier for, small applications or small websites, and you have environment variables, you have a CLI you can work with, you have form submissions, all kinds of stuff. And there's a few ways you can do it. You can bring your site in from GitHub or GitLab if you want. But we're going to use the CLI tool to deploy our site. All right, now there's one thing we have to do within the code first. So if you recall, we created this env.local file that has this, these global variables for our GitHub client ID and secret. Now, we're not going to want to use this in deployment, in production. So what I'm going to do is go to our GitHub state file in our context, because that's where we actually use this, where we use these. And we're going to have up at the very top, not the very top, but below the types and right above the state, let's initialize a variable called GitHub client ID, and then let's initialize GitHub client secret. Okay, and then what we want to do is check the environment. So we're going to say if, and the way that we check our environment to see if it's in production or not is say process.env, and then we want to do dot uppercase node underscore env, and we're going to say if that's not equal to production. If it's not equal to production, then I want this GitHub client ID, I want it to equal this right here, this process.env React app blah blah blah. All right, so we're going to set that, and then we want to do the same thing for the GitHub client secret. We'll set that equal to client underscore secret. Now, if we are in production, so else, then we're just going to want to use a normal global variable. We're not going to use this React app thing here. So what I'll do is copy this, paste it in, and I'm just going to get rid of the React app underscore. So it's just going to look for a global variable called GitHub client ID and GitHub client secret. And now we just need to replace down here in our requests, which will actually make it look a bit neater. We can replace these with those variables. So for instance, this is going to be GitHub client ID. This is going to be GitHub client secret. Okay, so it actually makes this look a bit neater. We'll do it here as well. Client ID. And this will be client secret. I'm just going to copy this. Okay, we'll do the same thing here. Client ID, this will be the secret. And I think that's it. Those are the three requests to the GitHub API. All right, so we'll save that. Now we're going to stop the server because we're ready for deployment. Okay, everything should still work. Okay, go back. We can clear. Good. About page. So back here in the terminal, I'm going to stop this with Control C. Clear this up, and we need to install the Nellify CLI. So we're going to do npm install, and we're going to install this globally. So -g Nellify-CLI. And by the way, you have to have a Nellify account. So just go to nellify.com, create an account, log in, and you should see a dashboard like this. And this is all free. Whoops, I'm on a Mac, so since I'm installing globally, I have to run sudo. And then while that's going on, we have to actually create a config file here. So we want to put this right in our root. We're going to create a file called nellify.toml. And we just want to specify a build folder. So build, and then we want to say publish equals, and then the name of the build folder, which is going to be build, because with React, when we run npm run build, it's going to create a folder called build, and that's our deploy. That's our production build. So let's save this. All right, now we have the Nellify CLI installed. So I'm going to just go ahead and do a Nellify init. All right, so it's asking me if I want to create it without a Git repository. I'm going to say yes, and then the site name, which we'll say this actually has to be unique, so we'll do like GitHub Finder, and then a bunch of numbers. And team, I only have one team, so I'm going to use that. Okay, so now if we go to the Nellify dashboard and reload, we should see our application. It's not deployed yet, but it is initialized. But what I want to do is now add our global variables, our environment variables. So we can do that by going to, I think it's deploys, no, is it deploy settings? Yeah, under deploy settings, you'll see this environment. I'm going to click that and you see this environment variables. I'm going to say edit variable, and we want to grab, let's see, this right here. So this is going to be GitHub client ID. And let's say new variable. We're also going to have the secret. So this way it's stored on the server, so it's much more secure. All right, and then we want to grab the actual values, which are in our .env file here. And you might want to have a different one for production than you do for development, but it doesn't matter for us. So that's going to be the value for that. And then we have the secret, which is going to be that. And we'll go ahead and save. Okay, so now we have our environment variables on our server. Now, remember, we're still not deployed. It says right here, site has not been deployed. So I'm going to go back to my terminal, and we want to first of all build out our React application, because right now we don't have our build folder. So I'm going to close all this up and say npm run build. Close that up, and now we have a folder called build. So that's what we actually want to deploy. And we only have one more step to do that, and that is Nellify. And we want to do deploy, and then just add the -- prod flag, and that should deploy to production. And there we go. We have a unique URL, but we can also go to our console here and reload. And now this is our URL, nellify.com. Let's click on that, and there it is. So let's make sure it works. Okay, can we clear? Good. Let's search again. More, and everything seems to be working. If we search without adding anything, we get our alert. So our application is now fully deployed. Now, if you want to continue and add a domain, you just go to set up custom domain, add your domain here, and you just have to change some settings within your registrar. I recommend Namecheap, that's what I use, but you can use any domain registrar. And then after that, you can go ahead and secure it with HTTPS if you want. And Nellify actually does this for you with Let's Encrypt. All right, so we now have a deployed application. We're using no Redux, nothing like that, no third-party state manager. We're using just the context API with use reducer and use context, along with use state and use effect. Okay, so hopefully you guys enjoyed this project. I know that we refactored it a lot, but the goal was to really go from just like the original way to write a simple React app using classes, not using a state manager, and then show you how to refactor it to use hooks, to use context, and all that stuff. All right, so in the next project, we're actually going to build a full stack application where we build the API instead of dealing with, a third-party API like GitHub. We're actually going to build it using Express, using some other stuff as well. We're going to deal with authentication with JSON Web Tokens. So it's going to be an even bigger project, but I won't be explaining things as much as I did here. Okay, this is actually a small project, but it took a while because I tried to explain everything as I went along. I will be explaining a lot in the back end, but as far as the front end goes, we're going to use a lot of the same principles we used here with context and state and all that. All right, so I will see you in the next section.